Hello, Telvani here, and today we need to talk about the Everlasting Gaze unique amulet. This thing is absolutely broken for basically every single build in the game right now. Archmage Spark builds have been running this thing pretty much since day one. However, I've found that it solves a lot of issues on all the builds I've played this league. Stuff that wouldn't seem as intuitive, like Ice Strike Invoker, or even Explosive Shot Deadeye. That's right, even Deadeye crossbow builds can take advantage of this thing, which is absolutely nuts. Now, if we take a look at the amulet itself, the main reason Archmage builds have been running it is that it grants up to 30% of your maximum mana as extra maximum energy shield. So when you're running around with a 7k mana pool, you're getting 2000 raw energy shield before all of the increased maximum energy shield modifiers on the tree. For Archmage builds, this thing is basically mandatory and build enabling. However, as I've said, its utility isn't just limited to Archmage builds that simply can't function without it. My Ice Strike Invoker, for example, goes from 1600 energy shield all the way up to almost 3000 energy shield just by equipping this amulet. And I don't even have that much mana. I've got less than 1200 mana on this guy. Generally speaking, items don't have as much pressure on prefixes as they do on suffixes, so for prefixes on your items you can often grab an extra mana roll for cheap on hybrid items, and that will just feed into the power of this amulet. With that said, it's pretty easy to get to 1 or 1,500 mana on most builds, which is going to equate to around 300 to 500 base energy shield from the amulet. That is essentially the equivalent, or even higher than, a perfectly rolled energy shield hybrid chest, which is absolutely insane. Getting the equivalent energy shield as you would from a chest on an amulet is huge. And all of that extra base energy shield is then multiplied by any increases to maximum energy shield that you're taking on the tree. So if you're grabbing 100% or 200% increased energy shield on your tree, you're looking at like 1,000 energy shield or more from this amulet alone. And right now, energy shield is basically required for endgame content, as there just aren't really any ways to scale life right now the same way that you can with energy shield. So this amulet is very good indeed. Even classes that you wouldn't typically expect to grab energy shield are doing it because there just aren't many other options for survival in the highest tier of maps. Evasion is nice, but even with high evasion, you're going to get hit eventually. And when you do, that hit is just going to drop you to 0 HP if you don't have a sufficiently large effective health pool to absorb that damage when the hit does get through. I know Palstron recently released a video where he is taking energy shield on his Deadeye, and this amulet can help solve that issue quite nicely, assuming you can get Spirit on your chest. While we're on the topic of Spirit, this is a great amulet for Invoker Monk, as one of the main drawbacks to taking this amulet is that you can't get Spirit on it like you could a rare amulet. However, on an Invoker, taking the Spirit Ascendancy passive, you don't care about Spirit on gear. And look, the power of this amulet doesn't stop at defenses. I've heard a lot of people complaining about mana sustain in early access, and this amulet grants nearly 100% increased mana regeneration rate once you put some quality on it. So between the little bit of extra mana we're picking up on our gear, with most builds you'll be able to spam abilities to your heart's content, without needing to waste a gem socket on something like Inspiration. If you take a look at my character, just sitting in my hideout without any leech, I can spam my Ice Strike to my heart's content, and never need to worry about running out of mana. So this amulet is absolutely cracked. It solves a good chunk of defenses and mana sustain for most builds. Honestly, I kind of expect GGG to nerf this amulet at some point in the future because right now, it is just too damn good for any build that is using energy shield, which, let's be honest, is most builds in the endgame. However, until they do decide to nerf it, or maybe make the amulet even rarer than it is now, I'd strongly recommend most players to try and pick one up. Now, I'm sure I'll hear a few people complaining in the comments that a Divine amulet is too expensive, but in the grand scheme of things, it's relatively cheap when compared to some of the true chase uniques out there like Headhunter or Ingenuity. So if you can afford an Everlasting Gaze and you can find a way to squeeze it into your build, I'd highly recommend giving it a go. because you're most likely going to end up feeling immensely stronger. Anyway, thank you for watching, good luck with your early access, and I'll see you in the next one.